Mirabella wanders to the throne and steps up beside it, her fingertips just grazing the gilded arm. Even now, it feels like it is hers, this thing she has been directed to, pointed at since the day she was born. But it is not her portrait that hangs behind it. No portrait of fire and fierce storms. No elemental queen with her gown billowing behind her. Instead, the portrait that hangs there is Katherine's, dark and still and full of bloody bones. That's a quote from Five Dark Fates by Kendare Blake. This is YA Book Chat, and I'm your host, Leah Stuhler. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of YA Book Chat. I am glad to have you here and listening. So today we are concluding the Three Dark Crowns series. I'm sad to say goodbye to this series because I love it so very much, but it is time. We are on book 4 today, which is called Five Dark Fates. And again, this is by Kendare Blake. And I have my friend Rachel here with me again today. Hey, Rachel, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Ready to dive in here because I loved this book and how everything concluded.
So much in one smallish book.
Yes, it was small-ish, but not too bad, actually. It could have been a lot bigger.
A lot happening, though. Yeah.
Yeah, she packs a lot into this book. I'm just going to give everybody a super quick kind of overview of what happens in this book, and then we'll get started in our full-on discussion with spoilers in it. So this book, the final book in the series, and lots of stuff kind of happened at the end of the last book. So the first major thing is that we have Jules now, whose Legion curse was unbound. And she's gone crazy. So we have that to deal with. And Arsinoe, her best friend, trying to seek a cure for her and, find a way to fix Jules. And at the same time, she's also still trying to figure out if she can stop the mist as well and figure out what's going on there. And then we have Mirabella, who at the end of the last book decides she's going to go and join Katherine's side and see what that's all about. So this whole book, we're just finding out what happens because that was at the very end of the last book. So, she's trying to figure out if she can trust Katherine. Katherine doesn't know if she can trust Mirabella. So it's kind of a lot that happens there. And then, okay, so I thought that Pietyr died at the end of the last book, but apparently not. He's just knocked unconscious by the dead queens who went into him from Katherine. So he's alive, but he's extremely unconscious in this book. So there's all of that to deal with as well.
I like that term, extremely unconscious.
Yes, it's fun. I'm going to start coining new terms like that. So we have that. And then, so Katherine in this book is just, trying to figure out how to wake him up, if he can be woken up, and how to take care of him. And at the same time, she's trying to figure out how to use Mirabella to her advantage, having her on her side. And she finds an interesting new way to put the dead queens inside of her to use. Yeah, so that's really exciting. So that's kind of our general overview of all the stuff. But let's get into a good discussion about this now because I'm really excited. And just as a reminder for everybody, this is going to be completely full of spoilers. So if you have not yet read this, you may not want to listen. All right. Come back after you've read it because I promise it's going to be really good. All right. What was your overall impression on this one?
So I liked it. There were just certain parts of it where I was kind of disappointed. There were, certain characters and their endings. I was like, oh, I just wanted more. I don't want to say too much yet. Yeah. We'll dive into it. But overall, definitely, I liked the way that the book ended. It was a good series finale, kind of tied mostly everything together. And I think left it a little open at the end. So maybe they could come back.
It did leave a little bit open at the end, and I thought that was good. I do agree. I thought it was a very good conclusion to the series overall. There were a couple of things that kind of happened that I was like, oh, all right. I guess I kind of could have seen that coming. And then a couple unexpected things. But overall, I was all right with it. So I think first, let's talk about Pietyr first, because I totally thought he was dead at the end of the last book. So then I started reading this book and I was like, wait a minute, he did not die? He didn't die? Like, I had to go back and I went back and read that spot in the fourth book and was like, oh yeah, it doesn't say that he dies. It just says that the dead queens like go into him and kind of take over him, and
Yeah,
he
he
falls.
just had those bloody eyes. That was about
Yeah.
it.
So he's not dead. He is unconscious. And Katherine gets like all of these poisoners and the healers and stuff to try and come in, and they're constantly there and they can't figure out how to fix him, right?
Yeah.
Well, then this is what gets me. So then he ends up, I don't even remember who was it. Amelia? I think it was Amelia ends up like going to the castle where he is.
Yeah, she
And
just like kidnaps him.
yeah, she does. His body, his limp, unconscious body. She kidnaps him, brings him back to the rebels, and they're like, here. And Arsinoe's like, well, I guess I can try and figure out how to wake him up, to make him more
Yeah.
useful to us. So, but here's the thing. Okay. So now I know Arsinoe uses low magic, right? So she uses her low magic and she wakes him up and he wakes up super easy. And I'm thinking, I know that she has low magic on her side and the poisoners don't, but I kind of felt like it was a little too easy for her to be able to wake him, and they had been trying for months and couldn't do anything. You know what I mean?
And it was a little hard for me to think, like, I pictured what Amelia looked like, and she was a strong character, but I'm like, I could just picture somebody walking out with this, like, corpse, like
Right?
this huge, tall corpse, and no one does anything. Everybody's just kind of like, oh, okay. But same thing. I was like, so he just woke up and there was no, like, nothing. No, like, he just woke up and all of a sudden he woke up and he's like, okay, so I'm on your side now. Cool. That's,
Yeah. Yeah, he switches sides. And I was kind of like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. And I didn't know if I trusted it at first, actually, because I was like, well, he could be saying that, but not really mean it. But then as we got further in, he was kind of like, no, because he said that he realized that Katherine is how dangerous she is because of the dead queens inside of her, and that she needs to be like taken down and defeated.
Yeah.
So I was
guess
like,
it was more like enough love for Katherine that he was like, well, I must kill you then because I love you so much, which makes sense. Again,
the second time, by the way.
I did this to you the first time, but
this time it's for real and it's for your own good.
Yeah.
Well, he just wants to like get the dead queens out of her too, I think, and see if there's a way that he can do that and have his Katherine back. But I don't know. I think he kind of realizes though that that's not going to happen.
It is kind of like a nice character arc of like, I was kind of this like iffy guy before and maybe on the wrong side. Now is trying to do the right thing. Like, no matter what. So I guess that's a nice development, but yeah, you didn't expect it. You were like, first you think he's dead and then you're like, oh, okay.
He's not dead. And Arsinoe woke him up in all of 2 minutes with her low magic.
Super talented.
Very, apparently. Oh my gosh. So then, but later, too, what's really cool is that when they have the big battle kind of towards the end, is he helps Arsinoe. He's with her, like riding with her on her horse, and he helps her find Katherine to try and defeat her.
Yeah. And I feel like that was like, again, him just trying to do the right thing. Like, even though it's uncomfortable and even though, it's the woman he loves, or maybe he just knew that she was going to have to die. And he kind of says like, I need to be with her. I want to see her one more time. So who knew he'd be a noble character out of all of this, but kind of was in the end.
He's not the one I would have picked for that for sure.
No.
I didn't really like him at the beginning. Like in the first book, I was always very suspicious of him. And then I was like, all right, I guess he does, have feelings for her. And then was it like the second book when the suitors come along and he's just jealous of Nicholas the whole time? I was like, this is just kind of annoying now.
Yeah, but that guy was terrible. So
he really was. So this book was much better. This is like my favorite book for Pietyr. I really enjoyed his character in this one. But let's talk about Jules. Actually, I think she's a more loaded one to talk about.
Yes.
So I love this because so she's gone crazy because of the curse has been unbound, right? So they keep her in this in a house. They keep her like in a back room chained up. And the thing is that they have to keep Camden chained up too, which is funny because I actually didn't think about this before in like any of the 3 previous books, but I hadn't thought about the fact that because he's so connected to her, being her familiar, that he would go crazy too. But he kind of does.
Yeah, it totally
I was
makes
like,
sense.
I should have thought about that. But yeah, so they have to keep Camden chained up as well. So I feel bad because I'm just like picturing them at this, like she's on the floor laying in this room in chains. And I'm like, oh, poor Jules, you know?
You have to think she probably doesn't even realize what's happening to her because she's so like out of her mind that she's just, doesn't feel like anything. I think that's the cool thing about familiars though, is that like they not only kind of like work with that person, but like everything that happens to one happens to the other, which is kind of cool. I wish that kind of happened in real life, but sadly not this world.
I know. I think it was when I was talking with Christine and when we were doing book 1, we talked about the familiar and the naturalist bond. And I said, it totally reminds me of E.T. and Elliot because they're that close to each other and they feel everything together.
Yeah.
It really is.
But that is kind of the same. Huh.
Yeah. What's great though is I love how like determined Arsinoe is to figure out how to save Jules because she's just like on this mission, like I am now here to be her protector. It's my turn to take care of her. And so I'm going to figure this out. And I love how she did it. And it kind of makes sense, after when they started talking to her, I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. In order to fix Jules and make her not mad, they have to bind the curse again, but she's got to bind her with somebody else again, just like Jules was bound with her mother. So then here's where we find out. I mean, we kind of had hints at this in book 3, but we really find out in this one that Amelia is actually in love with Jules. And so she's like, I'll do it.
Of course.
I volunteer as tribute.
I know. Exactly. No, I think that was cool. It was kind of a cool concept. I was reading some people that didn't really like that whole relationship just because they were like, well, who will further the line? And I'm like, who cares? This is just really cool. Like, I mean, it's just a cool concept to begin with, because if you have a 4th queen that's a Legion queen and wasn't one of the triplets, you don't need that anymore. You can just have queens that you determine on your own. What a novel concept. Elected officials. Oh my gosh.
Well, and too, what we find out in this book is that the first queen ever on Fennbirn was a Legion queen.
Yeah. So it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And then that was actually a really cool scene because Mirabella and Katherine were in this cave that I think it was Luca took them to, and they had all the pictures on the wall of the old queens and stuff. And then there was a picture of the very first queen, and she had all these arms holding out all the different gifts. And then when Mirabella touched the wall with the picture of the Legion queen, she got a glimpse of Jules. So she saw her and was like, this is meant to be, it's supposed to be her, which is really cool. And, and the thing about not continuing the line, I mean, that's pretty much been going on for the past 2 books.
Yeah.
It became very clear in the last book that wasn't going to happen because Katherine couldn't bear triplets anyway. Yeah. So her body is poison. I mean, so that's, I didn't have any issue with that. I was like, no, we're moving on. It's fine. Time to start something new in the land, Yeah.
And I thought that was, it was kind of like a fresh start and kind of going back to tradition that they didn't even know they had. Like, and I thought at some point that they were going to reveal that Jules had like all the powers, but she doesn't. But still, I thought maybe they would. I was really excited about that. But she, she is a Legion queen, so that's still cool.
Yeah. But I loved though that so they did, they bound her with Amelia and it works, and Jules comes out of her craziness and she's fine and Amelia is fine and they're just bound together. Yeah. But I love that, like, when Jules comes out of it, she does end up being really determined and she finally feels really ready to be the queen and to take hold of it and defeat Katherine and take her place as the war queen and the Legion queen.
Yeah.
Because before this, she really didn't. She was kind of like going back and forth, like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. And I was like, get a grip. You're the most powerful person. Just deal with it and take over as queen.
It's perspective. They're teenagers. They're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. It's okay, but you're gonna. So just do it. Like,
it's just how it is. So yeah, but I loved that she finally like really, really embraced it and then took over it.
Yeah.
And then I'm totally going to skip because I just want to talk about this now. So when we have the big battle at the end, so Katherine, just as a reminder for everybody. So Katherine, what she does with her dead queens, she figures out after the whole thing with Pietyr that the dead queens can go into other people. And so she gives them to Ro, who is also war gifted.
Yeah.
And is on the Black Council. And they make Ro like crazy and even more powerful because she is war gifted and she like tears people in half and does all this insane stuff when she attacks. It's kind of gruesome.
That was pretty hard. Like if you are a very vivid imagination as you read, that was some vivid, scenery.
Yeah. And I do. Although probably also too, because I watch like Vikings, on the History Channel and stuff. So I see all this vivid, nasty stuff anyway. So yeah, that pops into my head.
Yeah. I picture it a lot and I'm like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was
gross.
Yeah.
That was not a pretty thought, but I loved her battle at the end because at the big battle, Arsinoe and Pietyr go after Katherine, but then Jules goes after Ro because she knows that she's the only one who can fight against Ro and win. But in order to win, what does she have to do? She has to unbind the curse again. So it's like, because then and it's like you spend these like few minutes is like a little bit like, oh my gosh, this battle, she just unbound the curse. She beats Ro, which is awesome. But then you're like, she's going to go crazy again. That's not fair. And then I'd like, okay, well, maybe she can go through or be bound again with Amelia. And then you find out at the end, she's fine. Like,
that totally was really weird.
Well, I think it was because I don't know. I was trying to figure it out because I was like, okay, so she was bound for so long, so she wouldn't go mad. It comes undone. She goes mad. Arsinoe fixes her because she gets bound again with Amelia. Then she cuts it again so that she can beat Ro and kill her. And then everything goes away, like the mist clears and goes away after the fight. And then Jules is okay and she's not crazy. And neither is Amelia.
So is the mist like associated with but that wouldn't make sense either because the mist wasn't always around. Like, I mean, it was, but not like it,
it was, but not like
this huge, people killing mist. It was just kind of a barrier before. So
I think I kind of took it as it because of what happens to Katherine and Mirabella. Like I kind of take it as really Jules is the chosen one who's supposed to be chosen to reign, even though she wasn't one of the triplets. And so I feel like because she was the chosen one, that's why she didn't go crazy again. Yeah,
it was one of those things where it's like a lot of speculation. I wish it was tied together a little bit more, but for the sake of reading, you're just kind of like, okay, I'll believe that.
I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah.
The suspension of disbelief.
Speaking of that, can we talk about Mirabella and Katherine? Because it makes me kind of sad, actually.
It does. It was kind of crazy because the whole time Mirabella's there, I'm like, okay. I kept on thinking like Katherine's going to do something to her. She's like she can't trust her. And then, I don't know, they kind of do end up trusting each other a little bit, but not completely. I don't know. And then the thing is though, is that it ends up costing poor Mirabella her life.
Well, it was so confusing, like you said, because you feel like they're getting along and you feel like they kind of understand each other. I thought in that moment that they kind of both understood what was going to happen and that Katherine didn't want to do it.
Right.
And Mirabella didn't want these dead queens in her. And so it was kind of both of them like doing, I don't know how I want to say that. They were both making a sacrifice and ended up with Mirabella dead, which was sad. But honestly, we talked about in the third book too, she wasn't really like present as much. Like you could kind of see how she was getting pushed more to the side in favor of like Jules or Katherine or Arsinoe. So
Yeah.
But
Which is crazy because, in the very first book, she's the one who you think is going to end up becoming the queen crowned because she's the most powerful. And, the
yeah.
high priestesses are pushing and think that she's going to win. They're trying to do everything. But then that's not at all how it ends up happening.
Well, and I
But
completely kind of knew that if Katherine killed Mirabella, like, you think the mist is going to go away. And I'm like, it's not going to go away. And
right.
it totally didn't. So I was
Which
like, ha.
which means that Daphne was wrong when she told, because Daphne in the previous book told Arsinoe that all she said was, your sister needs to die in order for the mist to go away. And
She didn't
Arsinoe,
specify.
right,
Yeah.
but Arsinoe took it as Mirabella. But then when Mirabella died and the mist did not go away, then you went, oh, okay, well, that's clearly not the sister who needed to die in order for this to happen. So everything was wrong. I think Arsinoe assumed it was Mirabella because she was also an elemental. But what was interesting too is that I felt like Katherine and Mirabella did get to a good point because Katherine asked her to carry the triplets for her.
Yeah, that was kind of...
It was weird. And I was like, would that even work? I didn't even know if that would work. But
I mean, how many times did they have dead queens in the actual queen either? So, I mean, it could have, maybe.
Yeah,
but,
I guess so.
Yeah, it would have been odd. That's a really weird thing to ask your sister to do, but I mean,
it is. I know. And I felt bad after because I thought Katherine was really upset, because even though she knew like how much the dead queens really wanted to be in Mirabella, I don't think that she had pictured that they would kill her through her.
Yeah, like a betrayal of these queens that she's been carrying. I mean, I would think in the way I interpreted it, kind of showed her that like they don't really care about her. They just want whoever is the most powerful so that they can rule through them. And, Mirabella was obviously a much more powerful elemental than Katherine was anything. So
right. And the queens, the dead queens, because they really liked being in Roe because she was so powerful. They loved being a part of her. But then when Roe dies, the dead queens come out of Roe and they come back to the Volroy where Katherine, and at this point, Pietyr and Arsinoe are there. Everybody else is fighting. And Pietyr and Arsinoe had gone to find Katherine to end it. And so the dead queens are coming and they're talking to her and like, we have to figure this out. And Katherine was like, I know, but I can feel the dead queens. They're coming back. Something must have happened to Roe. And then because then the dead queens wanted to go into Arsinoe, like they were coming to go into her. So it's like they liked being with Katherine, but they were also like dying to be in some other people too and figure out more power,
Really, yeah, that's what it was. They were just trying to, I think Katherine was just kind of convenient because she got pushed down into the Recca domain. And so she was a convenient vessel, but
she wasn't powerful.
Yeah, she wasn't powerful enough. So they were always trying to like seek something out. So actually, it was Katherine's death that made me more sad than Mirabella's because it really was like a sacrifice. Like she was like, no, I'm taking you with me. We're ending this. And doing it in front of this boy that she loved and her sister that they weren't super close, but it was like their last sister. It was super sad. And she, like, I talked about this last time, she had a good like character arc too, where she started out really, really awful and you thought she was going to be terrible throughout the whole series. And then in the end, you're super sad that she's dying. Like, I
was sad too because, I mean, it's funny because we ended up where we were supposed to be with two of the queens dead and only one of them, of the triplets, two of the triplets dead and only one of them left. But it was really sad because Mirabella's death I had kind of been expecting to happen, but Katherine, I mean, I kind of figured would happen, but not in this way necessarily, where she was saving Arsinoe. She knocks her out of the way so the dead queens can go on her, and then she falls over the side and she dies. So it was definitely sad. And Arsinoe and Pietyr were really sad about it.
But then the mist is gone.
Yeah. The mist goes away. So it was totally Katherine. Daphne and Ilian didn't like her. So, and then the mist goes away. What was cool though was that moment though, because Arsinoe gets knocked over the side of the wall too, but then the mist comes up and like pulls her up and pushes her up back over the top to Pietyr and saves her. And she's like, that was Katherine and Mirabella's spirits and they were saving me. And, you know, and I was like, okay, it was kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Maybe it was, but yeah. So I used the mist and then the mist goes away, you know.
Yes. Like goes away for good, right? Like no more barrier, no more anything. So
no, it's just gone. It's completely gone. You know, it was kind of crazy though, because before that, you remember when I wanted to talk about this because it was really weird. Like Rode dies, right? And the dead queens come back because they want to go back to Katherine or go on Arsinoe. But Rose's like dead body is being controlled like by the mist or something. Remember? And it comes back. And so it's like zombie Rose is there and they're fighting her like dead body and they're totally freaked out by it.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
Yeah, that was one of the more kind of like, huh? Like what is happening right now?
Like, so there's a zombie in the room right now.
I would love to go to this actual island because everything happens here. It's got it all.
I agree. I think it's funny. Oh, I want to talk about Billy and Arsinoe a little bit. Because they decide in this book that it's not going to work. Well, more he decides than her, really.
That's stupid.
It's really more his decision. He's like, well, my dad is dead, so I have to go back to the mainland and take care of my mom and my sister. And Arsinoe's like, but you could bring him here, or I could go there.
Yeah.
And he's like, nope. We're done. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I felt like this was my favorite relationship out of all of them. And then I was like, why is it ending? Why do authors do this? Why is it like
because it leaves a very nice, as we said, it leaves it open to where you could potentially come back and revisit this if you want to. But I mean, it's kind of a noble thing where he's like, I have to go take care of my family. And to be fair, with everything he's kind of seen and experienced on the island, like the idea of bringing your mom and sisters there probably didn't sound very good.
No.
Then, you know, knowing maybe he was trying to do the right thing of like, to Arsinoe, you have to stay here and you have to help your sisters and help your island. So I'm just going to remove myself. But yes, stupid the whole time. You're just like, this is dumb.
Yeah. But then, I mean, it was kind of left open-ended at the end because Jules is, you know, reigning at the end, is in charge. And she's like, she comes up with a plan to kind of have Billy work with them with trading or whatnot. And is like, well, we could have him kind of be like an ambassador and he could come here and you could go there. And then, you know, so she's like, let's go get your boy, you know, so they get in a boat to go and over to the mainland to meet them. So there's kind of this like hope at the end that maybe Billy will accept this offer and then he and Arsinoe can be together more.
Well, yeah, and the mist is gone, so they're kind of open to the whole world now. So they're not really hidden anymore. So it kind of leaves it open to where what happens to the island after this, you know? It's kind of, I thought it was, you know, bittersweet ending, but, you know, still kind of good too, because leaves it up to the imagination, or maybe another series, maybe.
I don't know. This
Who
one's
knows?
got 4 books out. Actually,
I
feel like there is a companion one.
I think there was 1 or 2. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that there are, and I will look and then put links to those in the show notes for everybody, because I'm pretty sure that there are. Kind of like Marissa Meyer did that with the Lunar Chronicles. Like she wrote an extra, like one that had short stories in it, and Victoria Aveyard did that with the Red Queen series too. She's got.
I am reading that one right now. The big purple, what's it called? Broken Throne. Yeah, I'm reading that right now. So it's actually very good.
Confession time. So I started at the back of Broken Throne because it is just short stories and it doesn't matter how you read them. I could not wait. I wanted to read Cal and Mare first. So I totally went to the end and read backwards. I read back to front.
Okay.
On that one, Broken Throne. So I was like, I have to know first.
That's so funny.
But you know, it was good. So yeah, so I'll look those up because I think there are a couple, and then I'll put them in the show notes for everybody.
I have to ask this one question, and you probably already have this question, but it's called 5 Dark Fates. Who are the 5 Dark Fates? We have Katherine and Mirabella, which makes sense.
Right. And then I think it's supposed to be all of them. So Katherine, Mirabella, Arsinoe, and then Jules. And then I mean, maybe the fifth one is supposed to be like I want to say like the mist with Daphne and Ilian, or the undead, or the dead queens, maybe inside of Katherine.
Yeah, the title totally puzzled me because I kind of was sitting there, and again, a lot of like message boards and like Goodreads and stuff, people were doing the same thing, like, who are the 5 dark fates, like which ones are they? I'm like, I really couldn't figure it out.
See, okay, and looking at the cover, this I've been trying to figure it out too, because there's a skull with the snake in it, so that's the poisoner, so that's Katherine. And then there's what looks like it's probably Camden. But there's also a lightning bolt, which would be Mirabella. And then the shield with with swords. And then there's an eye in the middle.
Yeah.
Like,
who is that?
Like that's maybe that's like the Mathilde, why can't I ever think of this word? Mathilde, like the one who could see the future. Because they're in this a lot in this last book.
We didn't even think about
and really that. It's because of Mathilde. Like Mathilde is the one who kind of gives us prophecy about Jules. And really, okay, so going back another book, when it talks about the prophecy, like Magical, before she dies, when she's talking with her mother, Kate, they talk about how when Jules was born, there was a prophecy from an oracle that Jules's future was like uncertain or whatever, and they told her to drown Jules when she was born.
Yeah.
But Magical refused. And then when we come like the last book, and then book 4 and book 5, Mathilde and the other war gifted like keep telling Jules, there's this prophecy that you were a queen before and you're going to be a queen again, and that you're the one who's meant to rule. So, and with that being the eye in the center, maybe that's our fifth one. The oracle, the prophecy.
I hadn't even really thought about it, but that would make sense.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to think about this in a different perspective of like, we've watched Frozen 2 over here quite a bit. And so, like Elsa is the fifth spirit. So I'm trying to think like outside the box here. If Elsa is the fifth spirit, then maybe the oracle's prophecy is the fifth fate. I don't know.
Well, and do the oracles fall under like one of the like gifts, like elementals and poisoners and naturalists? Like that's kind of weird that they were never like they're
their own gift.
Yeah, but like none of the queens, they could never let the queens be oracles, which is so weird.
Well, they'd stopped that because there was one queen who was an oracle and she used her gift to kill people. So then they said, well, no more of that.
I know, I remember that, but still, I'm just like, that's so weird. Like that's,
I know. But the queens used the oracles. Well, Katherine used the oracles a lot in the previous book to get information. And then she kills the oracle who helps her.
I mean, if I had oracles, I would totally use them all the time because I want to know what was going on. Yeah.
So would I. Like, please tell me what's about to happen. Can somebody tell me how many more months I'm going to be dealing with this and being stuck in my house? That would be awesome.
That would be great. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. But I liked the ending too. I thought it was very fitting because we end with Arsinoe and Jules together. And like Arsinoe, was seen as the weakest from the beginning, even though technically she's not anymore. And Jules was always seen as the strongest. And I felt like it was very fitting that they were the two still alive at the end because they were best friends. They always had been, they'd always had each other. They always supported and protected each other. So I felt like in a way they were both the chosen ones because Jules, obviously, with her giftings and being the Legion Queen, was chosen to be the Legion Queen. But I felt like Arsinoe was the chosen triplet because she was chosen to protect Jules and be by her side and help her, And I thought it was very appropriate. I thought it made sense because like Katherine and Mirabella didn't really have anybody like that, they had other people in their lives, but nobody with a relationship like Arsinoe and Jules had together.
Well, it was like they were almost sisters themselves, so it's kind of fitting that they end up lasting throughout all the wars and fighting and everything. It seemed, I really, really would have been super disappointed if that didn't work out that way.
Yes, me too. So I was very glad that that's how it ended. Otherwise, I would have been like, why is Katherine still alive? Or,
Yeah.
Mirabella. Like, I can't even imagine what the book would have been like if Katherine or Mirabella had won in the end.
I think the only thing I would have been okay if like somehow they had gotten rid of the dead queens and they got Katherine back and she was just very like humbled and like,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. And, I suck at anything I try. And so, I'm just going to be your loyal subject. Then I would have been okay. But like, yeah, because like I said, in the end, it's just so funny who you end up rooting for and who you are sad to see go. But definitely the Jules and Arsinoe, that was one where if they had been split up, I would have been like, okay, I can't read this book anymore. Like, even though it's the end of it, not reading any more of these.
No. But that's not what happened, thankfully.
No.
Yay. So that was good. I did like too that she brought into this book, we didn't, even though Magical is dead, we didn't totally forget about Finn, her little baby, and Matthew. Like, they were mentioned in here off and on. So I really like that she kept that element in here as well. Yeah, because then, Arsinoe and was talking about going back to Wolf Spring and being there, which is great. And I really liked it too with the two of them, because when you think about it, so Mirabella was raised by the priestesses, in this like elaborate place.
Yeah.
Whatever, chateau, whatever it was. Katherine was raised as if she already was the queen and there were no questions asked, servants, all the whatever.
Yeah.
But Arsinoe and Jules came from a very humble, tiny house. Like, they shared a room in the house.
Yeah.
They're surrounded by other naturalists and animals, lots of animals.
Yes.
Like, they go fishing. I mean, they're doing low magic, which is looked down upon by people. So I feel like I loved how they were like seen as kind of Arsinoe especially, seen as like the underdog and like you're the low ones on the totem pole, but then that's who ends up coming out on top.
Yeah, kind of inspirational that, doesn't really matter if you had all the resources and all this, albeit kind of painful training that Katherine got her whole life, but that you could still come out and you're the one who rules. And right. Braddock is still alive. I saw so many people were like, please don't kill the bear.
I love the bear. I love Braddock.
I know.
I was very happy that he was still alive.
Yeah, I very much pictured him as this huge brown bear that just had this super sweet face that was like a dog, almost like, okay, like I'll just hang out. It's fine.
Speaking of which, have you seen, I actually saw a story online about this family who thought that they had picked up like a stray dog, and then as it grew, they realized it wasn't a dog. It was actually a type of bear whose face looks like a dog.
I did see that. Yeah.
How crazy is that? But like that could be what Braddock looks like, that sweet like dog face.
Well, that didn't help me because my oldest, for some reason, thinks, and she's 16, so she, whatever. She thinks that you can have a pet bear. I'm like, no, you cannot have a pet bear. Mm-mm. And then that story comes up. She's like, actually, you can. I'm like,
see, you can, Mom.
I'm like, no, you can't.
No, not okay.
Go read this book and live in this world, and you can have a pet bear.
Right?
Find some low magic, bind him to you. It's fine.
Fine. Then you're good. As long as he's safe, he's not going to attack any of us.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yeah. It's so funny how we are as readers. We're all like, don't kill the bear. All these other people die. We're like, but the bear is okay.
Joseph died, and I was like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Who cares that Joseph's dead? But don't kill Braddock, please. Yes. and Camden, we have to make sure. Like, I was when Camden gets hurt and when the bad bear attacks in book 2, I think it is.
Oh no!
I was like, no, Camden.
Speaking of your cat doing weird things,
she is. I just heard a noise and I was like, what the? And she's just, my son hung he has a one of those, flimsy little backpacks that you get for free everywhere. And it's got the long strings that you pull. And he has it hanging on the bathroom door for some reason. And she's messing with the strings and just pulled the door closed. So,
Of course.
Yes, she is my familiar. So when we were talking about at the beginning and you said, there were some things that you didn't like, did we cover all of it or were there other things you weren't sure
I think
about?
that was pretty much everything. I thought, I think like with Mirabella's death, it happened, like, you knew something was going to happen and everything, but it was just like, bang, all of a sudden like, oh God, she's dead. And like, you thought maybe she'd come back, because you're like, well, maybe she didn't die and she's gone, dead. That's it. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Like so I was a little disappointed about that, but I'll give authors, since they have to come up with all of this for me to read, if they feel that's the way it should have been, I'm going to respect that.
I agree.
But yeah, same thing. Like the whole Billy Arsinoe thing. That was another one where I was like, oh, come on. Like, it's got to be better than this. Well, hopeful. You're hopeful at the end, maybe.
I know. It was hopeful, but yeah. I know my only thing was the Pietyr thing. I was just still like, all right, I know she has a little magic, but she woke him up way too fast. It was way too easy for her when nobody else could figure it out.
He just had enough time asleep. He was like, I'm done now. I'll wake up.
That's probably it,
Yeah. Speaking of, how great would that be to sleep for like a couple months? Like,
oh my gosh. Well, and what's crazy too? Okay, so the Holly Black book that I'm reading right now, The Darkest Part of the Forest, has a fairy who's been sleeping for years. And he sleeps and he's in the middle of the forest in this glass box that cannot be broken except by a very special sword. And I was like, oh, wow. He's kind of like Sleeping Beauty, in a way. He gets a lot of rest.
I know.
I don't know what that's like.
I wouldn't hate that. I mean,
yeah.
Maybe the whole bleeding from the eyes part would be a little uncomfortable, but
Yes, it would be. Poor Pietyr. I did feel kind of bad for him.
But overall, I thought it was great. I mean, it just tied everything up as nice as you were possibly going to get in this series. So
I agree. And I liked that we still ended up with how it was supposed to be, with 2 of the triplets dead and 1 alive, because I felt like it had to be that way. That's how it was supposed to go. And if it wasn't like that, I think I would have been disappointed if they had all ended up alive. I was kind of hoping like somebody die, like, which sounds really bad. But I was like, but Judgment. This is how it's supposed to go. I know. It's really bad.
Oh, no, I get what you're saying, though. It was, it starts out and it ends exactly the way it was supposed to. So it fits.
And I really liked this series as a whole. I feel like I hadn't really heard a lot about it. I just honestly was like scrolling through Amazon one day and saw it and was like, that looks kind of good. I think I'll give this a try. But then I had seen some. Now, I always take any reviews I see online with a grain of salt, because I've just come to discover that when it comes to books, people have very different opinions.
Oh, yes.
So you never know. But, there were people who like, well, I didn't like it. The first book was just kind of blah. None of the action even happened, blah, blah. And then I'm like, okay, well, there are 4 books. So the first book has to be set up for the rest of them. But I really, really enjoyed it overall. And I want to read more books by Kendare Blake now, because apparently she's written a lot of other stuff that I have never read. And now I want to. So
I think it's funny how that kind of works, where you find some random book and then you fall in love with the series and you're like, oh, there's so many more by this author. Why didn't I know this before? Like, that's how I felt about Holly Black. Like, by the time I discovered her, I was like, what? There's already all these books out? Like, I got to catch up, which is great because I don't have to wait for a lot of stuff, but still. Yeah.
Neil Shusterman was the same way for me too, because I read, what did I read first? I read the Arc of a Scythe trilogy. And in the midst of that, discovered that the man has written like 40 books. I mean, it's crazy. So I have read a standalone that he did. And then, but he has so many other ones. I'm like, okay, eventually I'll get to more of these, but it's like, I like that, cause I've also read ones where it was like Victoria Aveyard. Okay. Red Queen series. Yeah. That was her first thing, her first series.
I know. So now we got to wait.
I know. Well, she's writing another one. It's in process. She's working on it. Keep seeing her posting about it on Instagram. But but so I do love when I discover authors like Kendare Blake for this series who have other books written that, if I really enjoyed, now I get to go and read more of what they've done.
I know my husband always jokes, because you have your like to be read list or like, and you keep adding to it and you take away from it, but you keep adding to it. He's like, you have to understand that you're never going to read all the books you want to read. And I was like, that's sort of depressing, but kind of awesome at the same time, because it means that there's just more and more books to read. I choose not to look at that negatively.
Me either.
Yes.
Because I keep and people keep emailing me or, I'll be talking with somebody on Instagram. Hey, you got to read this book and do this book. I would love for you to read this and review it on your podcast. And I'm like, I'll add it to my list.
Yeah. You're like,
I have so many.
I know. There's only so many hours.
I know. I haven't even gotten to, I haven't even covered Holly Black yet. I've read her books, but I haven't, it's coming. I promise. I do have plans to cover her on this podcast. It just hasn't happened yet. And Marissa Meyer. So Heartless was my very first episode. But she has the Lunar Chronicles and the Renegades trilogy, which are also fabulous. And I'm like, it's a good thing that, this format will probably be around for a long time. So I can cover all this stuff on the podcast as well. Because that means so much.
This podcast will be around for a long time too. So perfect.
I hope so. All right. Any final thoughts from you on this book or the series in general?
No, I just appreciate you letting me come on and be all book nerdy with you because I love it.
No problem. So just as a reminder, tell everybody where they can find you blogging and what you do.
Oh, so I am one of the owners of Military Moms Blog. So you can find me there, and it's Military Moms Blog on Facebook, and we are at Military Mom Collective on Instagram. If you really like to see pictures of Hawaii and nerdy book and coffee stuff, you can follow me on Instagram at Rachel with the coffee. So
and also amusing stuff, I must say, like when it was your husband, you said put the dinosaurs in the microwave the other day. That was funny.
Yeah, self-isolation is really getting to all of us here. But he does stuff like that all the time where I'm like, but I just went because you're a mom. I went to go put coffee in the microwave and I was like, there's 2 toy dinosaurs just sitting in my microwave looking like they're about to brawl. I'm like, okay, it's too early for this. But
oh man. Yeah. Well, and I will, I'll put links to Military Mom's blog in the show notes for today so you guys can all go and check that out because it really is a fantastic blog.
Oh, yeah. And since you guys read books, we have a book club as well. So if you go on over to our website, you can find out about that. And I run that as well. So
yes,
feel free to look at that or possibly join it. It's not young adult centered, but we do mix it up with a lot of stuff. So
yes, lots of really great reads there. All right. Well, thank you, Rachel. And thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been great. And we have wrapped up this series. So next up on the podcast, I'm going to be covering the book Stepsister by Jennifer Donnelly. And this makes you think of Cinderella in a completely different light because it is a story of one of Cinderella's ugly stepsisters. And it is like nothing that you have ever read before. So you guys won't want to miss that. That is going to be the next episode. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And we will chat again soon. Today's podcast featured the book 5 Dark Fates by Kendare Blake. YA Book Chat is hosted and edited by me, Leah Stuhler.